Hello, BookTube. This is the third attempt at filming this, and I did it the first time, and then I decided to. Uh, I should have had some props, so I sort of stopped it and thought I'd get some props. And then while I was going through, I got interrupted, somebody knocking at the door here. So I put it on pause, and I thought that was okay, and then went back, and a few minutes later, boom, somebody's knocking again. And then it just wouldn't continue to record after that. So I'm trying it the third time, and third time lucky, hopefully. And if somebody knocks at the door, I'm not answering it. There's a lot of things that are happening here in the short term, and it's quite a bit of upheaval here. I'll just say that. But anyway, I have a it's top 13 list of historians. And as the title says here, it is gender biased, but I am not going to apologize for that. And these are authors that I have. I started the list thinking, well, okay, I'll do my whole best authors of all time. And again, I didn't want to get this to go out of hand. Some of the lists that I've got here are huge. So I thought, well, okay, let me, because a lot of the older historians that I read, that some of them are 19th century and earlier ones, as you know, I love that sort of period of stuff. Uh, there's a lot of new history that's coming along, and like new research. So other than talking about them as writers and liking their style and looking at the historiographical aspects of them, I thought I would confine myself here to historians that I've read or reread within the last, say, 5 to 8 years. So I'm confining it to that, and my favorite ones of that. There's three honorary mentions, which we'll get to, and I'll explain why they're three honorary mentions. So let's just jump in. The first, and again, these are ordered from date of birth. In the first 10, with one exception, and I'll explain why. Basil Davidson, born 1914 and died 2010. I'd love to know more about him. There is a little bit of information up there, and I'll out there, and I'll try to remember as much as I can here. He fought in the Second World War, and then he was part of the SEO, and then he became a journalist eventually. But also he was a mercenary for a while, as far as I can understand, in Africa, for African nations, gaining independence after the Second World War. Now, I think that's where he caught the bug of Africa, and he's used that in quotation mark, because he became so interested in Africa and its history, and he realized, as far as I can tell, he realized that there wasn't much in the way of popular history, and what people thought of Africa was extremely far from the truth. And it goes back to, if there's a history of the world, if it even mentions Africa, it'll say, well, not much happened there, or in other words. And it was sort of almost like a lifelong thing to rectify that. So he started doing research into the real academic stuff that would go on a library shelf, a university library shelf, and never be taken off by the general populace. And he and then eventually, in the early 80s, he did a fabulous documentary series called Africa. It's not, I don't think it's been aired for very long. I think it's still on the internet or on YouTube. I'll see if I can find it. If I can, I will put the link down at the bottom. The music, the opening music is just fabulous, it's haunting. So he breaks all the stereotypes and the myths of Africa. He does, like when I was talking about historians that information has changed or new research is done. That's with his stuff too. So he is one that is one of the oldest, but he is somebody that I have revisited recently, so I do want to add him here. And he, some of his early books are extremely dense, and he just lists stuff because isn't that much information about these things, but he gets as much as he can. And he talks about these great civilizations that were there, massive cities, trade all throughout Africa. It's, whether Saharan, Sahel, or Sub-Saharan Africa. It's just fabulous. And he has to make inferences a lot of times in this. So you have to leave allowances for that, a lot of his inferences. Some of them turned out to be correct. That's why it would be, well, it's never going to happen, but it would be neat to have an annotated version of these and say, oh, well, he was right here, but he was wrong here. Oh, this is what, happened from this once we've excavated here and so forth. But yeah, no, it's just, I really love him. And I haven't read everything by him. I think he's even written a few fiction books, which I'd love to dip into. So, okay, that's enough, Basil Davidson. Next one is Pamela Horn. And this is the shock that's going to break the internet, is that the other 12 historians that are on here, they are all alive. I know, it's shocking for me. They're all alive. It's Pamela Horn. She was born in 1936. Fabulous cultural historian, like a Victorian cultural historian. She might have did some stuff on Edwardian too. I haven't touched any of that, but she's done things like the Victorian servant, Victorian children, Victorian sort of pastimes, Victorian children in village and village life, that type of thing. Just absolutely fabulous stuff. Again, not academic inclined, but just social history that is just, and an extremely good writer. Now we move and we go back to Africa here, but a more specific area of Africa rather than Pan-Africa, if you could say that. Is John Laband. He's an academic. His writing it's confined more or less to South Africa and sort of 19th century and a bit before, with Zulu wars, but also the precursors to that, and was sort of what led up to it. And when I say he's academic inclined, because there is academic writing style that gets into his writing a little bit, but it doesn't deter from this. And he also makes he takes a little risks in the sense of saying, what if this happened? What if this battle went the other way? What would have happened? And it's very interesting, that kind of supposition at times from somebody who knows what they're talking about. Yeah, I really like his books. And then the next one you might say is a cheat. There's actually two on here that you could say, well, one's in the honorable mention, but I'm not moving from it. I'll argue that no, they are a historian, but just a different kind of historian. And that's Mike Ashley. He was born in 1948. And I'm calling him a historian because he's a science fiction historian. And specifically what I'll be talking about is his history of the science fiction magazine. But he's probably most known for is as an editor of anthologies. If you've ever seen the Mammoth Book of insert word, dozens of these. And he's edited these and other anthologies. And not every Mammoth Book of whatever is his, but a huge chunk of them are, at least here in the UK. But he's done 5 volumes, like a massive history of the science fiction magazine, starting, he goes precursor right back to sort of 19th century or before, like where science fiction had sort of appeared, but then all of a sudden with the Hugo Gernsback in 1926 in the United States, where a specific magazine was devoted to science fiction solely, and then goes forward, and there's a number of books. This is the second iteration of his his history. The first one was done in, I don't think it started. He did it started in the 60s. I think it was the 70s. But they're more anthologies for the periods that he covers. And but he does have appendices with all the artists, the illustrators, the editors, and also additional authors to look at. And he chooses what he thinks are the best and representative of the time. That you can argue with that if you want to. That's a separate thing. And then there's essay. But then when the revised version is taking away the short stories and concentrate on the history and the people of this period, and it's chronological, so he jumps around a little bit. So it's not just a specific history of Astounding or Analog, as it turned out to be, or Amazing Stories, or Galaxy, or the magazine of fantasy science fiction, on and on and on. It's all in there, and also, but for the most part, the chunk of it is English language. But he does do the world as well, and the world sections get bigger as the non-English, I should say, get bigger as time goes on. He does mention there are quibbles that you can make all the way through with things. He'll mention, oh, this was a really atrocious story, but we don't get to read it in there. We have to then, if you want to, search it out. And then he says this is great, but you might, have different views of this. But you also got to remember, this guy has probably, well, he has in his collection probably one of the best, or he has had one of the best collections of science fiction magazines and popular magazines. And it's not just science fiction; he writes on other magazines as well. So he is really well known. I don't know if there's anybody else that's out there that would have the width and breadth of knowledge and reading of these magazines that he has. So even though you disagree maybe with that one story, but again, you got to remember he's comparing it to other stories that I and others probably haven't read, so you got to take it with, thinking, okay, well, maybe there's something to what he says. But anyway, just fabulous. And he's done other things. He's done a few biographies, but he's done a great co-authored sort of dictionary, encyclopedia, one volume of sort of magazines, weird magazines or whatever. So, and that's more like an essay on each one. Like some of them are quite long of the specific magazine, but it's a little less detailed, I think, especially when he deals with the science fiction ones than in his history of science fiction magazines. Anyway, I've talked enough about Mike Ashley. Let's move back to Africa, and more specifically South Africa, with Ian Knight, who was born in 1956. Now, he deals with the more or less same material as John Laband, but in a slightly different way, a less academic way, I would say. But he also is very, and I think they both are. But Ian Knight, I seem to see him being more active in sort of preserving and promoting the aspects of the Zulu War, not from a colonial point of view, both of them as well, because they will talk about the Zulus and talk about, because after the Zulu War, at some point, the Zulu Wars, there were a lot of interviews that went out, and there's lots of documents of talking to the Zulu warriors of the battle and their side of it and their experiences. And this is all put in to the mix of the history that they both do, and others do this as well, obviously. But these are two that I've recently read a little more of than others, and it's just it is just fabulous. And then we move on to back to, most of this is going to be British history, I think, from now on. Judith Flanders, born 1959. British historian. I don't know what her full academic background is, but I believe she does teach somewhere, or at least holds a position at a university. Again, I didn't want to do a whole bunch of research into these people and just sit here and do this. It's sort of, things that I remember and my impressions of them. That's what I think this is about. Judith Flanders, born 1959. I was able to find one prop. This is the first prop, actually. And this isn't her first book, but it's called Consuming Passions, Leisure and Pleasure in Victorian Britain. This was written in 2006. Could be her second book or maybe third. Her first book is called A Circle of Sisters. I've not read that one yet. It's like a Kipling sister, Sister Kipling, Burne-Jones. I can't remember. I think there's 4. And they were all connected, and it sounds very fascinating. Anyway, this one is sort of, if I could find a sort of brief thing here, it's better for me to just read the flap when I have these or part of it. Imagine a world where just 1 in 10 people has a knife or fork, where 5 out of 6 do not possess a cup. This was Britain in the early 18th century, yet by the close of the 19th century, lives were completely transformed. Now centering around urban living, industrial employment, shopping, and professional entertainment, the Industrial Revolution brought with it factories, railways, mines, and machines. It also brought travel, department stores, leisure, and pleasure. Consuming Passions tells the fascinating story of how over 2 centuries, leisure became an industry offering a cornucopia of entertainment for a new mass audience as demand was fueled by the newspapers, by advertising, by publicity, all 18th century creations. Josiah Wedgwood invented money-back guarantees and celebrity endorsements in the following century. Charles Harwood and Gordon Selfridge, Charles Harrods, and George Selfridge aggressively extended the possibilities of marketing and publicity for their department stores. And this now, this is the sort of the area mostly she deals with. Other books that I've read, she's got a history of the sort of the British house she goes through, and then there's or the home, I guess. No, more, I think it's the home. And then she does have a history of the house. I don't think I've read the house one yet. I'm not sure if I own it. But anyway, she's also done one that's really, really great because she mentions newspapers and things like that. She's written a history sort of a murder, the fascination of Victorian mostly of the British murder. And we'll get to that with another book as well by another author on the list. But it's fascinating. It's about as thick as this. It's very big. This is like over 500 pages. Not all her books are this size. Some they vary. There's a Victorian London that's really good. It's more or less Dickensian London, if I remember. But I really love this because she talks about. I love things about roads. If you've seen my tour of my transportation, I love history of roads, and she does a lot with the roads of the construction of that time. And just ripping up roads and everything of that in there. It's really, really good. Let's see, what other one? Oh, she did a history of Christmas, a little slim book, History of Christmas. She also is a writer. I've never read her fiction, but she also is a writer of mysteries. But I've never read any of it. There's another writer that's, I don't know if it's her daughter. Anyway, somebody may be able to tell me when this goes up, if there is any relation to another Flanders. I think that's a fiction author. But no, this is just fabulous. It's well illustrated, as you can see. But yeah, another really great writer. Here's an old picture of her that was from that. And she shows up as guest time on other documentaries, or she has on what I've seen. I don't think she's ever done a full documentary herself. I've never seen it anyway. Next author is Kate Cohoon. I'll show her the way her name is spelled, and I never get it correct. In other words, she was born in 1964. She's another historian that's very interesting. That goes there's two books here that fit in with that history of the British murder and things like that. The first one is a book that I received from her. I sort of won it in a competition on Twitter when I was more active on Twitter, and we conversed back and forth quite often about a number of her books, occasionally and through DMs and stuff. But this one is "Did She Kill Him?" A torrid true story of adultery, arsenic, and murder in Victorian London. See, I'm not a big thing. Like, true crime is a huge thing, but it's usually modern crime. I don't mind Victorian crime. That sometimes I'll get a taste for it, and that it will be connection to another one of her books. So I've got 3 of her books here, and this one's that's her name, and so I've always had trouble pronouncing it. This one was written in 2014, and as I say, I think this is American. Yeah, this is the American edition, but the pages are yellowing on this one as well. So this is signed, and what does it say? With all good wishes from. And I'll because I have these books here. I'm not gonna. I can't do as well as explaining what the flap says. I may not read the whole flap. Well, I will maybe. In the summer of 1889, young Southern belle Florence Maybrick stood trial for the alleged arsenic poisoning of her much older husband, a wealthy Liverpool cotton merchant. The Maybrick mystery had all the makings of a sensation. A pretty, flirtatious young girl, resentful, gossiping servants, rumors of gambling and debt, and mutual infidelity. The case crackled the varnish of Victorian respectability, shocking and exciting the public in equal measure as they clamored to read the latest revelations of Florence's past and glimpse her likeness in Madame Tussauds. In Did She Kill Her, Kate Cohoon recounts the utterly absorbing tale of addiction, deception, and adultery. Did Florence poison her husband? Was her infidelity proof of murderous intentions? Was James's own habit of self-medicating to blame for his demise? Cohoon's well-researched, highly detailed, utterly gripping narrative builds pacefully and masterfully until the very last page. Usual hyperbole there, hyperbole. So yeah, and it's got blood stains on it there as well. There is a picture of her, and as is the author of Murder in the First Class. Yeah, we'll get to that one next one. Her previous works have been nominated for the Duff Cooper Prize, the Samuel Johnson Prize, and the CWA Gold Dagger Award. I was going to say Digger Award. Gold Dagger Award. She writes regularly for numerous publications, including the Daily Telegraph and The Guardian. She lives in London. And this is another one. This one's fabulous. Mr. Briggs's Hat. A sensational account of Britain's first railway murder. I think it's had different titles as that one was. This is the British edition. I think the American edition had a different title. Because that one, I think it says some railway carriage. This one was written in 2011. And I'll just read it. On 9th of July 1864, after an evening with relatives, Thomas Briggs walked through Fenchurch Station and entered carriage 69 on the 9:45 Hackney-bound train. Little did he know that he was traveling into history. A few minutes later, 2 bank clerks entered the compartment. As they sat down, one of them noticed blood pooled in the buttoned indentations of the cushions. Then he saw blood smeared all over the floor, windows of the carriage, and bloody handprint on the door. Ladies in the adjacent carriage complained that their dresses had been stained by spurts of blood entering their windows while the train was in motion. But there was no sign of Thomas Briggs. The only things left in the carriage were his ivory-knobbed walking stick, his empty leather bag, and a hat that strangely did not belong to Mr. Briggs. Mr. Briggs's hat. Now the last one, because I have three, I'll show it. This is a fabulous one as well. We're changing gears here. Taste, the story of Britain through its cooking. I love the cover. To understand, this is, I don't know who Mark Kurlansky is, author of Cod. To understand Britain or understand the central role of food in history, read this engaging and admirable book. Yeah. I'm not a food historian or anything like that, but I found this utterly fascinating. This one is from 2007. Did the Romans use pepper? How did the Black Death lead to the beginning of rural baking? Why was the sale of fruit banned in 1569? What linked roasted meat and morality in the 1790s? When did we move from serving everything at once to a succession of courses we know today? From the Iron Age to the Industrial Revolution, the Romans to the Regency, few things have mirrored society or been affected by its various upheavals as much as the food we eat and the way we cook it. In an age of convenience and waste, in which Delia Smith has written a book telling us how to boil an egg, and Jamie Oliver has become the guardian of our children's diets. Kate Colquhoun explores 2,000 years of Britain's rich culinary heritage, uncovering the ebb and flux of fashions that have both linked and distinguished different eras. Celebrating every aspect of our cooking, from Anglo-Saxon feasts and Tudor banquets through the skinning of eels and the invention of ice cream to Dickensian dinner party excesses and the exponential growth of frozen food. Taste tells both a formal and an intimate story as rich and diverse as a 5-course dinner. Filled with unusual facts and beautifully illustrated, it is nothing less than an involving and immediate history of the British people, told through the ways we have prepared and shared food down the centuries. Yeah, there's several sections of photographs, color and otherwise. Sorry, that was very quick. More colored. Yeah. Just a fascinating book. And I do have to tell a little story, and I know I'm getting long here, but Jamie Oliver was mentioned. It might be when I... Oh, did I mention... Wait a minute. Oh, it'll be the next author. I think it was when I was at the Oxford Literary Festival getting and seeing and getting signed next author, but I won't spoil that until we get to the next author. I went out, it was really hot, and they had the tents, these big tents, and it was extremely hot, like it was just humid and hot in there, and I was just pouring with sweat, and there was a huge line, there was a food thing, because going up, and it was like a big sign, because Jamie Oliver was there, cooking food and all this stuff. So huge queue and line. Same thing, queue, line. And so I finally get up there and I ask for a bottle of water, or several bottles of water, because I was dying of thirst at that point. Wow. Talking about hyperbole. But I was thirsty, let's put it that way. And they were trying to say, oh, well, don't you want any food? It's Jamie. No, just give me some water. And she just kept pushing me to buy some food because Jamie Oliver was cooking it. And I said, I don't give a flying you-know-what. And I didn't say the word, but I said, I don't give a flying, about Jamie Oliver. And all of a sudden, there was talk, and all of a sudden, the whole, like, he was cooking in the back. Or I guess I didn't realize it was him. And I said it fairly loud. And all of a sudden, there was silence. And then there was a guy, like it was back to him, and it was him. And all he turned around and he just threw his pots down on the floor, and stormed off. And I go, oops. So I pissed off Jamie Oliver. One for me. Anyway, let's move on. Bethany Hughes, and I'm pretty sure it was when I saw Bethany Hughes at the Oxford Literary Festival. I couldn't find any of her books to find. I had all of her books. I think I had Helen of Troy. There was Death of Socrates. Memories going here. But there was a new one that I didn't have that I've recently got. Well, new in the sense I think it's 4 years old, possibly, on Istanbul, and she might have done something newer. But she shows up. She's had her own documentary. She's fabulous. She's even fabulous. She's very effervescent. She's absolutely fabulous in person. And because I had her first book and I had the Socrates one, she really liked that because everybody was bringing the latest one, which I can't remember what that was, but I had those two, and like she was talking about her firstborns and stuff, referring to the book. And so I spent like 10 minutes in, making the queue and everybody else angry behind me, chatting with her. And she wrote, it might have been in the Socrates one, or it might have been in the Helen of Troy. I can't remember now, but she wrote, it's somewhere here. There's a big project going on here to sort of sort out so I can find stuff here. But anyway, she wrote something in Greek, and I don't know what it says. And I wish I had it. When I figured I need props, I was really hoping to find it so I could hold it up and say, "What does this say?" But no, it was just fabulous. I'm sure she's probably got a newer book. It's been 4 years ish. Since Istanbul came out. I haven't read the Istanbul one yet. Full disclosure. But yeah, I'm sure she's making more documentaries. Yeah, she's just fabulous. Okay, let's move on. This is getting quite long. Catharine Arnold, another fabulous historian, but she's at this location. She's the last of the 10 because I don't know when she was born. I did a quick Google search, but I couldn't find. Everything that I've read from her is fabulous. She's got I'm not even going in order here, I'm sure. London Vice, about a vice and prostitution in 18th century London. Necropolis, the history sort of cemeteries, and Bedlam, a history of the mad of London. I'm not even gonna get them all here probably. Bedlam is the location now where, it was the mental institution at the time, and the military museum is on there. There's this full name for it. I'm blanking on that. And the most recent one, I guess that was maybe I don't know. I've read most of these again in the last 5 or within the last 5 years. But there was 1918, is it the pandemic about the Spanish influenza that was really, really good. It got a little technical at times that I think lost me a little bit because I didn't quite follow everything. But yeah, just fabulous. I'm sure I'm missing one for some reason. I think, she's written a book on the globe, I know too, and I don't have that one and I haven't read it. But that would be fascinating. So yeah. Now we go to sort of the honorable mentions. And these ones are ones that I've never read, but I've seen documentaries with them on. And the first one, I'm sure everybody's going to gasp and say, why I haven't read this author, this historian. Very popular on the internet now and everything. And I do like when I've seen her on shows, is Mary Beard. Born 1955. I'm looking still at my phone to the side here. Oh, wait a minute. Let's back up. Sorry. After Bethany Hughes should have been, I missed one. Sorry, we're backing up. I'm not re-recording this. Is Lucy Worsley, born in 1973. We're getting into youngsters here. Lucy Worsley. She is, I can read it. I have one of her books here. I don't have them all. This one's signed because I saw her again. Chief Curator at Historical Royal Palaces, the charity which looks after the Tower of London, Hampton Court Palace, Kensington Palace, the Banqueting House in Whitehall, and Kew Palace and Kew Gardens. That's her day job. But she also makes documentaries and writes books. Yeah. There's a picture of her. She's very sort of vintage clothy, 50s, 60s, I suppose. And I saw her at the Oxford Literary Festival as well, and I got this one signed. This is A Very British Murder, the story of a national obsession. This is, and everything else that I have of hers, I think. I don't have her. She's done a couple since then, and I don't have them. Or I might not have her first book. I'm not sure. Because it says here, and Fit to Rule. I'm not sure that one. I never read this. But this accompanied the BBC series. And it's the same subject matter that Judith Flanders did in her book. But she did it much bigger. She probably at least another 100, or maybe a little more, 100 pages in this. But Lucy Worsley's area sort of starts... what's it actually saying here? No, it doesn't. I think it ends with George Orwell's letter. I think it's called A Very British Murder, and he goes through the popularity and the obsession that English people have had about English murder. I'll just read here again. It's just in a very... That was quite loud. That probably would have drowned me out. In A Very British Murder, Lucy Worsley explores this phenomenon in forensic detail. She revisits notorious crimes like the Radcliffe Highway murders, which caused a nationwide panic in Regency England, and the characters such as the murderesses in black satin, Maria Manning, who helped bury her lover under the kitchen floor. Our fascination with these dark deeds would create a whole new world of entertainment, inspiring journalism and novels, plays, and puppet shows, and an army of beloved fictional detectives from Sherlock Holmes to Miss Marple. During the birth of modern Britain, murder somehow slipped into our national psyche and provided us with some of our most enduring and endurable pastimes. A Very British Murder is a unique exploration of how crime has turned into art and a riveting investigation into the history soul of one of our finest. Well, that is just hyperbole, or hyperbole, because it's not unique. Judith Flanders has done it. I think Judith Flanders, there might be others, but Judith Flanders' book is, this is not taking away anything of Lucy Worsley. Lucy Worsley's books are fabulous. She writes well, but she covers sort of trodden ground most of the time. Not a lot of original research. Well, there is original research, but I guess maybe original ideas. The Judith Flanders, there's a lot of juicy stuff in there that's sort of new. She delves into the penny dreadfuls at times and other knickknacks. Well, so does Lucy Worsley, but yeah, it's because Lucy Worsley also did a book called If Walls Could Talk, which is the history of the home, which is fabulous. Fabulous series, fabulous book. But Judith Flanders also did the same thing. And then later, I think it's later, that Lucy Worsley did. But as I say, it doesn't take anything away. They're fun to read, both of them, even back to back, are fabulous. So, okay, sorry I've got out of order there, but now back to the Honourable Mentions, Mary Beard. And the reason why I say I've not read Mary Beard, this is why she's on the list here. These are historians that I've seen in the past, 5, 6, 7 years. These ones I've seen them on documentaries, and I've yet to read her, classical historian. The next one, again, somebody might say is a cheat, like Mike Ashley, is Alice Roberts. She was born in 1973. Youngins. She's an anthropologist, archaeologist. She's done a lot. She shows up as guest experts on, she did on Time Team, I believe, and a lot of other shows. She's an anthropologist. and just I like the way she presents. I'd love to see if she writes as well, also, and I'm sure I will eventually. And the last one, the very last one now, because we're at 40 minutes, is Susanna Lipscomb. And if I got the date right, she was born in 1978. Now we're getting into children. Young. Well, younger. She was, I guess she's the youngest. I don't think Katherine Arnold is young, but I don't know her age. Susanna Lipscomb. She did a fabulous, I've seen her on several things. She did a fabulous series, and I can't remember the name. Oh, sorry, I should have looked this up. They're preparing. On sort of poisoning, like how the Victorians poisoned themselves in a variety of ways, the dangers of the home and everywhere, both the arsenic that are in the clothing and the food even, and a wallpaper and the germs and everything. It's pretty scary, but very fascinating. So I'd love to see. I'm sure she's got some books. See, these are like, I know Mary Beard has books. I'm pretty sure Alice Roberts. I've never actually looked to see if Susanna Lipscomb has. She's done a lot of documentaries. She's guest starred, I've seen, and probably done a lot more since I haven't watched anything much in the past decade almost. Well, a little less than that. But yeah, so therefore, there's my list of top historians. But as I say, the caveat is that it's recent historians that I've dealt with. And again, I am not apologizing for the gender bias here. There's enough apologizing for that. These are one, and this is the reason why I've chosen them. These are authors that I've read recently. The only thing to me is a shock here is that 12 out of 13 are still alive. They're not long dead. That's the shock, I think, of this list. But I'm putting it up on that. And I should say, I haven't figured out fully the title of this yet. But it'll be something that'll be interesting. That'll make you want to click on it, hopefully. Anyway, thank you. And do sign up, because this is the last one I'm going to pre-record for top lists or top 10s. I don't know if you're tired of them. If you are, do sound out in the comments politely. I'm fine with that. If everybody's tired of it, that's fine. But if you want to see more and have any suggestions, this could go on for a long time, because there's lots of top 10s you can do, or top whatever. Doesn't have to be confined to books as well, but it'd be nice if there was some way of books related, but it doesn't have to be. Music, art, you name it. Those are going to be hard, actually. But anyway, no, sorry. Forget I said art and music, so please do not suggest art and music. Please do not. Anyway, I'll see you next time, BookTube. Take care.